Zeke has been arguably our best player. I'm not trying to be unfair to anybody else, but he's an incremental part to our success. We're glad to get him booked in. We're glad to have him on the team. He plays a position that has some pretty interesting dynamics to it. Zeke allows us to create such problems for the defense that then we can open it up to our passing, open it up for Dak Prescott. Of course, we got to have some guys on defense to get those guys the ball. That's what this is all about.
Funny how the universe works. The Cowboys open with New York. Jerry Jones is ringing the opening bell, and the deal is done today. There are the images, or at least one image. Ezekiel Elliott with a big smile on his face signing his new contract. The Instagram post there for the Dallas Cowboys. Here are in terms of average annual value for the highest paid. Currently, Ezekiel Elliott leapfrogs Todd Gurley, as he did in the guaranteed money as well. Then you see Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, and Devontae Freeman. All those numbers coming over the cap. And one man who's happy this saga is over, head coach Jason Garrett.
We'll see how he does. He'll go through the dynamic warm-up and the individual, and then we'll see, how he's responding. He's in very good shape. He looks good, but he hasn't been practicing with pro football players. So we'll just see how he fits back in. But he's a quick study. He's a smart guy. Got an excellent football IQ. So we'll just see where he is and adjust accordingly as we go.
And another celebration comes in the form of emoji from the Cowboys Twitter account, a fork in the knife, alluding to Zeke's preferred celebration where he says, "Feed me," or at least he signs it by acting as though he's eating a lot of food rapidly. Let's bring in two people who statistically probably slept less than you did while tracking this, NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport, as well as Jane Slater coming to us live from the Cowboys facility. Let's start with you, Ian. $50 million guaranteed for Zeke. How does this contract break down?
$50 million guaranteed. It is a 6-year, $90 million extension, which means the Cowboys now have one of the best running backs in the NFL locked up for 8 years at a total of $103 million, the largest running back contract overall in NFL history. And really, this has a lot of what Zeke wanted. He wanted to be the highest paid running back. He wanted security. He wanted to be paid like one of the best players on this team. And the reality is, this deal, essentially the overall numbers of this deal, was probably in place for about 3 days. This one was really about how much guaranteed money there was going to be and whether or not this deal was going to be backloaded. The hope was that he would eclipse $50 million guaranteed, and he hits it right on the nose, and it's probably spread out a little more evenly than the Cowboys wanted a couple days ago. That helped this deal get done. That helped get Zeke on a plane from Cabo to Dallas to land, and all those reporters to give everyone hope, to keep all of us up all night, and finally get this deal done at about 7 a.m. Eastern time.
Pretty early there, Jane, following this whole thing, as Ian said. Zeke comes from Mexico to Texas, the journey of this entire process, and now it's so much more simple. We're wondering about Sunday. What's this all going to mean for the football player playing a football game on Sunday?
Yeah, and about 2.5 hours after they were able to finalize the language of that contract, we were told that Zeke was inside this building at the team meeting. And today we saw him, you saw the video earlier, back out in the practice field for the first time with this team in 83 days. Now, look, Rocky Arsenault, his agent, has told you that he has been training in Cabo San Lucas at the Diamante Resorts in a situation very similar to what we saw during his 6-game suspension. Jason Garrett was asked about what condition he's in. He said he looks like he's in good shape. He also told me that he's not going to go through that conditioning run the way that we see most of the players do ahead of training camp. They said this week's approach is sort of the eyeball test. They're going to trust the player and trust this staff that everyone's going to be open and honest with each other to see where he is at. You know, Jason Garrett said it best today. He's been chomping at the bit to get ready to play. He's been in constant contact with his teammates as well as his coach, ready to get back out in the football field. Now, heading in today, and keep in mind, a lot can change between now and Sunday. I was told the plan for Zeke was about 20 to 25 reps. Behind him, they've got rookie Tony Pollard, who was really impressed in the preseason, but they're going to have their fullback, Jameis Olawale, as a guy that they consider their best blitz pickup back guy on third down, a guy they trust a little bit more in pass protection. But that is the plan right now. We'll see how this shakes out throughout the week, but they're not worried about him getting up to speed. As Jason Garrett has continued to maintain to us, this is a smart, instinctive player. They're not worried about him getting necessarily acclimated or worried about this playbook under Kellen Moore. This is all pretty much the same stuff that they've been running. It's just sort of the window dressing of it as sorts, and it certainly helps that you've got now a guy behind him that's gotten a lot of reps with the ones that can lighten the load for him.
Yeah, for the end of a holdout, right at the start of the regular season, it seems like there was a pretty solid plan in place to get ready for this. Jane, stick around. We'll be back with you in just a moment because we have some big other contract news that we weren't expecting to come at this point in his career, maybe at this point in the week. Everybody was waiting for Zeke. There were helicopters hovering around, cameras flying around airports, and the Rams just kind of up and gave Jared Goff an extension that provides him more guaranteed money than anybody in NFL history, $110 million for the former #1 overall pick. Ian, let's go inside just how this deal went down for Jared Goff and Les Snead and company.
Yeah, it went down very, very quietly. And ever since Carson Wentz got his deal done, somewhat similar numbers, $32 million per year, also on a 4-year deal. Ever since that happened at the end of the spring, it was clear that a deal for Jared Goff and the Rams was at the very least possible. Not a given, but possible. And from what I'm told, these negotiations really picked up about midway through camp. It was important to those involved to keep it quiet so there wouldn't be the sort of media circus like, oh, I don't know, Zeke Elliott, which we've talked about for the last month. It became very clear last night that Goff was going to accept the Rams' final offer, and it was going to get done before a deadline that both sides wanted to hit, which was basically the Wednesday of game week. In the end, it's a 4-year deal, $134 million, and he gets more than $110 million in guarantees, eclipsing his buddy Carson Wentz in guaranteed money.
Ian, you mentioned the Zeke Elliott situations. Let's bring Jane back in because this all ties back into the Cowboys, as so many contract things have, Jane. Jerry Jones gave us that great analogy of the pie and that there were dwindling pieces of the pie remaining. How does Goff's deal impact Dak's contract negotiations now that the pie, in theory, is smaller?
And mind you, we didn't expect that La'el Collins would have a piece of that pie, a contract that was done this week as well. It's my understanding that they haven't had a whole lot of more meaningful conversations with Dak or Amari still. As I reported earlier this summer, Dak Prescott's team is not looking to do a hometown discount here. They were jumping off those Carson Wentz numbers, and they had started with an asking price of $40 million. Now, I know his team has come back and disputed that since then, but as I reported, that was a jump-off number to start negotiations with the hope of putting it somewhere in the 34 to 35 range. You got to think that this deal getting done with Goff certainly moves that number as well and helps his case. And you got to think that the Cowboys are looking to get in there and talk to him ahead of Mahomes, who's probably up for that contract here pretty soon. A number that we've heard thrown out there is going to be around $50 million. So I anticipate the Cowboys will probably start reaching out to Dak, even though there haven't been meaningful conversations as recently as Monday when I last checked. But I would anticipate that there'll at least be some dialogue as a result of that Goff deal.
Yeah, and really, I would echo what Jane said. First of all, how quiet these negotiations have been with Dak and the Cowboys, but also where the market is now, because you now have Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, two players with somewhat similar numbers and accomplishments to Dak Prescott. You can go either way on some numbers, but there are certainly some similarities between Dak and the other two. And basically what they've done is create a market for him in that 32, 33, a little higher $1 million range, and give Prescott a reason to believe that he deserves those numbers. You have to think that this makes it at least a little clearer for Prescott and the Cowboys to get this deal done. Now it's just a matter of getting it done in the next, let's say, 4 days or so before the start of the season.
And recent events have indicated that that is a possibility, considering what has been done in the past 4 days. Ian Rappaport, Jane Slater there with the latest on these new contracts, especially for the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in a bit as